As part of the Climate Stories project, I'm really thrilled today to have Tanya Pacholuk with us. Tanya's working with the Biosphere Institute, and she's a community engagement lead there. So she has a lot of experience in advocating for climate justice and using arts as a way to engage communities in discussions around environment and social issues. Tanya has a Master's of Arts in Community Engagement from the School of Public Health at the U of A. And she also holds a Bachelor of Science in Honors in Psychology. She's very passionate about projects at the intersection of socially engaged art, climate justice, and gender sexuality inclusion. Welcome, Tanya, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
I'm happy that our audience has an opportunity to hear from somebody that's, really active in advocacy, but also you've got this great background in arts, and you're trying to use arts to empower communities to move toward action on many of these issues that we face. So a good term that I like is art for social change. And in my world, for the Climate Stories project, that's a really central idea and a central theme. What I've been trying to do is tell stories that help people process all these tremendous changes that we're all experiencing as a result of the climate emergency. And I've been talking with scientists, and some of these scientists are telling me that, the documented facts and the sciencey kind of language that they use, it's not really enough to compel people toward action. And what they're saying is that we need to use art to put the scientific facts in a context that people actually understand and can apply to their own lives. So I was wondering, with your background and your great experience, Tanya, could you comment on this? And really what I'd like to explore is, what's the role of art in helping people understand and adapt to the climate emergency? And with all the experience that you've got over the last number of years, can you give us some examples from your own career?
Yeah, great question. And also big questions, I think. First of all, when we're addressing complex issues like climate change and climate justice, I think we need everyone, and we need all sorts of approaches, diverse experiences, backgrounds, skill sets. And not everyone can do it all, but we can all do something. And so I think that's where interdisciplinarity comes in, and unexpected kind of collaborations are really crucial. And we've talked about this before, but like all of these systems of oppression that we have today, like colonialism, racism, heteronormativity, capitalism, all of these are interconnected and need to be challenged and reimagine ways of organizing and relating with each other. And so the solutions and reimaginings that we come up with won't necessarily arise from the same worldviews that create and contribute to these problems. And I mean, we all probably know Audre Lorde, the master's tools will not dismantle, excuse me, the master's house. And so I think that's just one way of saying that in order to tackle all of these kind of so-called wicked problems and complex challenges, we need different approaches. So arts, I think, are really essential in this. We kind of live in a world where even the idea of climate is really depersonalized. It's something out there, it's overwhelming, it's challenging to grasp. And so cultivating kind of new ways of interacting with each other and with these concepts is really important. And so I think part of that is I guess integrating and incorporating the arts allows us to look through a more heart-centered space. It allows us to embrace more embodied knowledge and experiential understandings, and really allows us to come and bring creativity and joy to these spaces. And I was able to do an arts-based component for my master's thesis. which explored the way in which Alberta's craft food sector understands and lives out these ideas of degrowth. And so we used a photo voice and a cell film kind of methodology with that. And I think the way that uh, these methods really allow people to kind of look at things differently, shift perspectives, challenge the broader systems around us, and also just relate more closely and intimately with some of these topics is just really important.
I find that fascinating that you were able to draw together, like on the surface, they're kind of disparate people with many different backgrounds. You've got people that are working in the craft food industry,
Mm.
along with artists from many different disciplines, and then combine that, stir in a little bit of social activism, and you've got something that's somehow works. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of facilitating all that and getting those diverse people to actually work together?
Hmm. Yeah, I think this is one of the a big challenge of our times, these really polarized or seemingly polarized viewpoints that different people have, and people not being able to really bridge the gap and find the common values and humanity of it all. I mean, that's exacerbated for sure by being online, being on our phones, like kind of these algorithms that contribute to just really polarizing rabbit holes that people can go down. And so it's really important for us, I think, to come together and even with different viewpoints and the ability to have conversations, have dialogue, and work together to really build communities of care for each other, for the planet, for other species. So yeah, I guess within that particular project, yeah, I my participants were anything from small craft brewers and distillers in Alberta to a vegan cheesemaker to then the butcher in small town Alberta. And so um, we all kind of came together around similar values and principles, although coming from different places. And I think that's a really, I guess, generative space to be in, because it's really good for us, I think, to get uncomfortable, to get a little bit messy, and to come together in these experiments that really act as little like micro revolutions to the way that the systems currently are operating. And that's how we can find ways to disrupt it and to reimagine and recreate ourselves and our relationships.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm trying to imagine what that would look like. You get a bunch of foodies in the room, and then you start a revolution. How could it not devolve into a food fight?
Well, no food fight was had, but yeah, definitely a good point to kind of jump off of is, and like food brings people together, and connecting with our local food systems is probably one of the highest impact things we can do as individuals, and it brings a lot of new avenues, I think, for growth, and connection. And so yeah, we didn't have a food fight, but we may have gathered at cideries and learned about what each other is doing, and yeah, and then connect in those kinds of ways.
So food definitely brings us all together. It's something that everyone that's a human has in common with each other, the need for food and the love for food and it being part of our culture. What
Yeah.
about art? Because art also can bring people together, and it's very good at um, getting people to find things in common. So with all of the
Mm.
work that you've done, I know you come from a theater background. Can you tell us about an example or an experience that you had in that realm?
I'm really interested in community-based art practice, and so this could be a total range of things. From it could be theater-based, it could be photography, it could be drawing, could be poetry, and I think regardless of the medium, it's part of the value of it really comes from the process of coming together with other people, through different modalities, and really tuning into our own experiences and perspectives. So, for instance, I did a project, a community-based queer ecologies project with the Firefly Institute at the U of a couple of years back in Edmonton, and the all the participants were able to explore whatever kind of artistic expression or medium they wanted to. We met on a regular basis, and had dialogue and discussion. And then what emerged from that was a variety of photographs, and visual art, to
Mhm.
some videos, music, poetry, I think when it comes down to it, like, you can look at a photograph and I can look at a photograph that someone has taken to represent something or to explore their perspective, and I mean, a picture's worth a thousand words, but also our world views and our positioning will interpret it in different ways. And so there's always, I guess, that ability um, to learn more about ourselves and each other is really rich through the arts. So it really opens up possibilities in that way and to see things differently. And then a cool part of that project that we did, not only it's not really as much focused on the end product, or there you didn't have to be a quote unquote artist to participate. Anyone can participate, anyone can create art. Um, and Really, the value and the beauty of it is a lot, partly product, but a lot process as well. And so what did we learn, what did we unlearn, what kind of new insights and conversations came from it? And I think that kind of relational aspect of artistic processes just allow for such a beautiful vulnerability and intimacy and connection, and and through this project, creating that community of care was really a byproduct of it and really valuable.
Wow. What a great experience probably for all involved. This idea that it's the journey, it's not the destination. So we're not trying to um, result in a product that has like almost like a predefined nature to it. We're just a group of people in, as you say, a caring environment, a caring community that are working together and learning from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as maybe simple as that sounds, it's lost in a lot of ways in the way that we live, in the way that we structure our relationships. There's urban isolation and kind of the technological illusion. I guess it's an illusion of disconnect, but that comes from, I don't know, being stuck in our phones or being stuck in our little, like, nuclear families and apartments and spaces. And so just the act of coming together in those ways, I think, is is pretty revolutionary.
As somebody that's out there speaking up for what she believes in, what do you do to stay motivated? Do you have maybe some spiritual or some intellectual practices that you engage in when you need to recharge your batteries on those days when, the problems that you're facing, they kind of seem insurmountable? What do you do as Tanya to keep yourself motivated?
Hmm. Yeah, I think first and foremost, I feel grounded and inspired in all the work of the people that have come before, and currently, and people around me. I think it is really easy to get overwhelmed and be in a doom and gloom space or feel a bit paralyzed by, just like you said, it feels a bit insurmountable sometimes. But then also, amidst all of the suffering in the world and challenges, there are also a lot of people overcoming these things and working and doing wonderful things um, to change them. And so I think feeling grounded in the fact that I have a wonderful community around me is really helpful. Um, and yeah, I've seen you, Scott, at a lot of different events, and so connecting with like-minded folks like you, and others, I think, can be really, really helpful and grounding and making you not feel that you're alone in any of it.
Yeah, a mutual friend of ours, Bob Sanford, has this expression. He says, if you think that the world is falling apart and you feel like you're alone, the first thing to do is stop being alone. So find people that have the same beliefs and have the same impetus for change as you do.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's a wonderful point. And I think with that comes the importance of resting, of self-care and nurturing our own system of a life. I think we often think of systems change externally, and then we often can neglect kind of our own kind of personal system of our life. And so I often try to look back at or look inwards to that and think, okay, how do I slow down in my own life? How do I prioritize what really matters? How do I keep myself um, nourished in a variety of ways, both emotionally, spiritually, physically? Um, and that's important in order to sustain it. It's really easy to burn out, I think, in certain fields. Um, and yeah, so one of the biggest lessons, I used to get really severe and chronic migraines. And so I think that really taught me the importance, like it forced me to slow down in different ways, and really just have some, it was always kind of like a hibernation time where you kind of go into a space and then reset. And so as much as that was challenging, it really taught me a lot. And I think that shows up for everybody in different ways.
Is that related to what you've called the slowness movement?
Yeah, I think it can be. Yeah, there's kind of this movement of slow living, voluntary simplicity, also linked to, I mentioned sort of these ideas of degrowth, and just different kind of philosophies that counter this hustle culture and urgency that we're often in, and just trying to fill our lives with sometimes what is just kind of busyness and in a hamster wheel. And so, um, yeah, so I do really value that and try to embody that as much as I can. I think it's a privilege to be able to, and but also kind of with the privilege of where we live, and we need to, there's a responsibility that comes with that of trying, I I mean, yeah, trying to make my own carbon footprint smaller, trying to um, just do my piece of what I can do. And with that, I think a big aspect is an intentional slowing down. So that links to slow food, slow fashion, kind of all these things. I wonder if there's a slow music movement. Probably not, but yeah, just whittling down to an intentional slowness. I guess it also reminds me of the session you and I went to about how Buddhism or different philosophies and meditation can really help contribute to our sustainability in this field.
Absolutely. And you bring up Buddhism as as a philosophy, and one of the principles in within Buddhism is renunciation, voluntary simplicity, and
Mm,
turning away from our cravings and the things that we have convinced ourselves that we need, and
mm.
flipping that on its head and saying, you know what, we can do without, or we can do this differently, and we don't need to try so hard to be part of this as what you called the hustle culture.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think an important distinction with that is like it's not in a scarcity mindset. There still is like abundance to it, but it's like, yeah, if I set up my life where I can walk or bike to work, first of all, that is like a nourishing time. It's a simple way that I can kind of integrate in a more holistic way a lot of wellness in my life, and also at the same time, it's a lower carbon way of transporting around. But yeah, that walk or that bike ride and setting up, kind of planning, intentionally setting up our system in that way can be really helpful. And yeah, another thing I was thinking that we've talked about, Scott, is kind of this idea that there's three stories of our time, which are referred to as business as usual, the great turning, and then the great unraveling. And I think being in the advocacy space, it's really important to recognize, yeah, sometimes you might actually just be in the business as usual state and be needing to just get through the day, go through the motions, and it is quite taxing to always be turned on in certain ways, and it does require a kind of ongoing compassion and reflection within ourselves, but also sometimes taking those rests and breaks are really important and just as important.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And sometimes you're like working within organizations that have a business as usual approach. And there are times when you just want to, like get up and scream, "Don't you see what's going on?" So there's got to be enough, as you pointed out, there's got to be some self-awareness there and some recognition that there's a time and a place to get on a soapbox and a time and
Mm.
a place not to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we have to work within the systems that we are living. And as much as sometimes that can mean radical change, and we want to push for that, sometimes we have to celebrate the small wins and move a bit slower with certain aspects of it. So yeah.
Yeah, we have to work within the systems that we live in. It reminds me of that joke, the joke about the revolutionaries in their basement, and they decide one day that they're going to bring Google down to its knees. So they're sitting around and they're going, well, how do we do that anyway? So the first thing they do is get on their computer and they Google how to bring Google down.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. That's fair. Yeah, I think it is an important thing to be aware of, especially in the climate realm. It's like there's there's an importance for technological solutions or sometimes where they call technocratic solutions, but like not always having just only a reliance on that, because uh, we need, yeah, we need different ways of approaching these challenges and these crises that we're facing. And if we just keep repeating the same thing or using the tools that already exist, we're not gonna meet those marks.
Well, Tanya, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today on so many on so many different topics. We've really bounced around a lot, but you and the Biosphere Institute have been a great contributor to me on the Climate Stories project, and I wanted to thank you for that. And just thank you for being here today and sharing your thoughts on these important topics.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing and the creative ways in which you're incorporating and bringing about storytelling, and sharing of different perspectives. And I think it's really important in our community. So we're really grateful to have you in our community. And thanks for inviting me to come chat today.
Of course. Thanks for being here, Tanya. Bye bye.
Bye.